Well, I'm here today to interview Major General Arthur Jacques Poillon. And it's an honor to be here with you in the same room because you put in 36 years of service to this country. In those early years, in 1943, when you decided to become a Marine, what kind of made you pick that branch of government, branch of service?
Well, I didn't want to be drafted. I wanted to, so I joined, I could join the Marine Corps when I was 17, before I got my draft card. So I avoided the draft by joining the Marine Corps. When I joined the Marine Corps, they had a program which was for officer candidates, and I had promised my dad if I ever got an opportunity to become an officer, I would. So I took that route, and I was sent into a program in the Navy Department called V12. We, amongst ourselves, said, victory in 12 years or we fight. It was, in retrospect, I recognized that it was a brilliant idea in the Department of Navy to stockpile junior officers who would be individuals who would subsequently become junior officers when they were commissioned. And it was in order to have the junior leadership within the Department of the Navy and the Navy and the Marine Corps to allow the people to fill a responsible position as junior officers and keep them in a supply line. And so I did not see any combat in World War II, but I was commissioned right at the end of World War II, and was sent overseas to replace those that had been there for a long time. And so I was sent to China for a short period of time. I spent 2.5 years there when I was there, and I guess I learned my skills as a result of some of the non-commissioned officers who served for me.
Well, I know you like to be called Jake.
Yes,
That's
right.
the name that came from your middle name, Jacques, and it got shortened up from time to time, and you were born in Boston, Massachusetts.
It became known as Jake because people couldn't say Jacques. My grandmother could, but most other people had problems with the French pronunciation.
Well, I'm probably the same, but I guess you being in China, you learned a new language while you were there for two and a half years.
Yes, I did. Mandarin was a very difficult language to learn because it has characters, not letters, such as we do. And I could never conquer the problem. I learned phonetically the sounds of a foreign language, which I never really met the professors. I don't think I'd ever pass a Chinese language examination.
Did you have any particular story that you'd like to share with us that happened in China while you were there for 2.5 years, meeting another general or somebody?
Well, first I was in Peking, as we called it in those days. Beijing, as it's called now, the capital of. And China was divided between the communists and the nationalists. And the nationalists held a peace conference in Peking, and the Marines that were there were responsible for the safety of the communist delegates. So you might say I worked for the communists for a while.
So that was a challenging time, I guess, for all.
It was a very challenging time. I met Zhou Enlai, who was educated in California, and he spoke beautiful English. So I was not necessary to speak the Chinese language.
Which, because I can only imagine trying to learn the language. I'm just trying to learn to say thank you in Chinese. It's difficult.
Shishini.
So I've got the thank you down. Wartime service, we can go into that, but I want to go back to, you were born in Boston, Massachusetts, and I guess you didn't stay there very long because you went around for the next 36 years after you went in. I guess for the first 17 years you were probably there, and then after...
We were stationed, when I was born, my dad was stationed in Fort Marfa, Texas, and was the commanding officer of the 1st Cavalry Regiment. And then we moved to New York, and he became the senior instructor of New York National Guard for the cavalry in New York State. And I didn't see much of the military at that particular point because we were living in a big city. It was also during the Depression, which you could see everywhere.
Mm. And I guess your father was in the service for 42 years.
Yes. He came during the Spanish-American War as a volunteer, and was commissioned as an officer in the volunteer service and served in the Philippines. And actually, at one point, he escorted Douglas MacArthur, a cadet at the United States Military Academy, up to see his father, General I'm sorry about that.
I understand.
I have problems with starting a sentence sometimes and not finishing it.
Well, you're doing great. I'm hoping I'm doing as well as you are when I get to your age.
I was talking about my father.
Your father taking down
meeting MacArthur.
Right.
And of course, MacArthur had just graduated from the military academy, and that was the first. Dad took the was in charge of the baggage train that delivered his son to his father, the commanding officer of armed forces in the Philippine insurrection.
I know your father must have had a lot of influence on you, being involved with the Army all those years, and then just wanting to see his son carry on the tradition.
I was always amazed that he couldn't drive a car, and when we moved to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, he became the senior recruiting officer in the state of Pennsylvania. And he learned to drive, and it was terrifying to take the seat next to the driver. My mother did most of the driving when we drove anywhere.
And when you started out, you finally became the highest rank of Major General, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And what year was that?
Well, I became a Major General in
I shouldn't put you on the spot.
1976, I want to say.
76. I was still at Auburn University in 1976.
Well, we have a graduate of Auburn who became a Commandant of the Marine Corps. I don't know whether you knew that or not.
No, I did not. So let's go on to your service during wartime. I know you weren't involved during World War II, but I also see that you were very active in the Korean and Vietnam. Could you tell us a little bit of some of the...
Yes, I did make the initial operations when the Marine Brigade went into the Korean War. I had been in the organization which went out there, but I had been transferred subsequently prior to that time to be an instructor in the Naval ROTC unit.
So you were basically teaching during the Korean War. During
the first year. The second year, I went out in 1952, joined the 1st Marine Division as a company commander, and served in the 5th Marines during the trench warfare that we had descended into that particular time. And I served on the battalion and regimental staffs, and then back as a rifle company commander.
Rifle company. How many people were involved of the
rifle company reinforced with about 200, 210 men, depending on what the reinforcements were. We had 4 rifle platoons in the company, and I was very fortunate in having very high class and fine junior leaders in the non-commissioned officers and the officer services that we had there. I was very fortunate in getting a terrific group under me, and we had some fighting to do. It was scary, but I learned how to control my fears, and I tried to lead from the front because I felt that was the important thing. Oftentimes my troops didn't like me to come around because they would incur incoming fires, and they often figured I was reckless, and all I try to do is show them that they could do a lot of things that if they allowed their fears to overcome their commitment to the focus of what we were doing, the mission which we carried out, they could do it much better with swallowing their fears, so to speak, and they were able to do that. When I took over one company, I was over on the left flank of the 1st Marine Division, on the right flank of the 1st Marine Division, and to our right was the King Shropshire Light Infantry. The company commander, he gave me the British salute, and almost I didn't know how to respond to other than snap my salute away. And we exchanged liaison NCOs so that we'd know what they were doing on one side of the river, and the Samachan River, and what we were doing on the way of patrols and things like that, how we had our fires scheduled, etc., so that we did not have friendly fire casualties. And when I had been out there about 2 weeks, I began to have very, very difficult problems with my stomach. And I was afraid I was getting an ulcer. I'd heard about an ulcer, and I called my corpsman in and said, I want this to be classified as between you and me. And he said, what's the problem? And I said, well, I have a problem with my stomach. And he said, I was wondering when you were going to get around to talking to me about it. He said, you know how many cups of coffee you're drinking a day?
Yeah.
And my routine was that we have night patrols, and I would stay available, and of course to stay awake I'd drink coffee. And so he counted up one time. He followed me around for 24 hours, and I found I was consuming about 36 cups of coffee a day.
Wow.
And no wonder my stomach was tied in knots.
But that, you had to do that to stay away.
So he sent the liaison NCO over to the British Light Infantry Company and asked them if he could get a tin of tea. Well, a tin of tea was about this big and filled with raw tea, and it would be a lifetime supply, I think. But the NCO brought the tea back, and I've been on tea ever since.
Wow. When you say when you were there on the your responsibilities on the rifle company, what was your rank at that time?
I was a captain. I was a Newcourt captain.
And so you felt it was important to be out in front so the troops could see that
I'd be up with the troops which were on the front. And I think that's very important that leaders show their self to their troops, that they be there. So sometimes I was concerned by senior officers coming down to visit me. I was afraid that they might not might not appreciate me telling them to get their fanny down.
Because you were interested in leading by example. I can only imagine you staying up drinking 36 cups of coffee so you could stay up 24 hours at a time so you could stay focused on what was going on. How many days in a row would you stay up 24 hours in a row?
Well, I was fortunately young in those days. It didn't require as much sleep as I do now.
And then after the Korean War, you were transferred again?
Yes, I did a couple of duties in Hawaii, and then I was fortunate enough to be selected to go to the Army War College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And from that time on, I was involved in manpower events in the Marine Corps. I just backed into the position and happened to be available when they needed somebody.
So after that, then the Vietnam War cranked up.
Vietnam War, I was operations officer for the First Marine Division, and served with a great team of operating staff officers that made me look good because they were so good.
And you were what rank at that time?
I was lieutenant colonel, and I was selected for colonel at the time, but my problem was that I had regimental command as a lieutenant colonel, and there were people who needed to have regimental command in combat, and I did not have it in combat. And so I couldn't convince the commanding general to let me be a regimental commander when I've already had a regiment.
Okay, so you were already there doing it. And I notice here that you had the Battle of Hue City,
Way,
68.
the Battle of Way during the
Wait, okay.
Tet Offensive of 1968, I think I got, maybe it had been 67. The North Koreans and the Viet Cong erupted and took over a good bit of some of the cities, and the city of Hue was the figure stone, if I can put it, I'm not using the words correctly, but it was a landmark in the Vietnam history, and it had been the ancient history of Vietnam, and it was taken over by a Chinese attack, and North Viet Cong forces working with the South Vietnam Viet Cong, and it was necessary for a joint task force of Marines and Army to make the attempt to recover the nation, the thing. But we had to work with the South Vietnamese division in order that they could recover their own historic capital. And the city of Hue was on both sides of the river, but the ancient area was inside the walled city of Hue. And that was the ones that we had to work with the North Vietnamese, with the South Vietnamese military to assist them in recovering historic capital. And that took a little doing.
That's what I was going to say. How many months or weeks did it take? How long did it take to recapture or take back the city?
It seemed like forever, but I would say that the fighting was street fighting around the environs of the city of Wei, the capital of Wei, but I really don't remember how long it took. It may have taken 3 months, it may take 3 weeks, but as I say, it seemed like forever.
Right.
We had units of the Marine regiments, and we had Army, airborne forces, Airborne Infantry Division, a portion of it. We must have had the equivalent of a division under the task force that took it back. And the real fight was done by the troops.
And after the Vietnam, or during, you were decorated with the Legion of Merit.
Yes,
combination.
I got a Legion of Merit. I always thought it indicated the work that the team had done, not which I had done. But, I felt it important for those who were members of the team to get recognition also.
Right. And I also read in some of your literature that after you've been in combat and seen all what goes on, that you believe women can be in combat, and you quote, "There's no reason that a female can't fight for just like a male." So you do believe females can have a role in combat just like men.
I was concerned about it because I know that some women can do it, but in many cases you can't. The woman is just not strong enough to load the heavy packs on her back that the men required to do with all the flak jackets and weapons, ammunition, etc. Selectively, women can do it. Certainly, mentally, they can do it. And but I think that there are areas which would be a real challenge for them, where they would certainly try. And I had a lot of Marines, female Marines, who have done a tremendous job in filling positions which you normally would not think. For example, flying an airplane. No reason a woman can't fly an airplane as well as a man. In some cases, they would say better.
Right. Yes. Well, that's I guess I could go on, but I wanted to kind of wrap up that you were finally moved to rank of Major General, and that took a lot of years to get to that point. And is there anything out of all the 36 years that you were involved in the military, and also with your father's military, what would you say or talk to a young person as we go forward, a young person that might want to see this tape, that would encourage him or her to do the sacrifices that you
I never I never aspired to senior rank. I was fortunately entrusted with it from time to time as I ran through my career, but it wasn't my focus to pat myself on the back, so to speak. I tried to spread the compliments around, if I can put it that way. And I think I did it fairly well. It's important that the teamwork that I was inherited in many cases from previous positions, the individuals make up a team are very important to that team. And for example, when Task Force X-Ray was formed, I was very, very fortunate in having several individuals working with me, which we formed a team which was successful in doing what the mission required. And I didn't do it, they did it, and a lot of other people were involved and did it. So I think the teamwork that I learned in recruit training when I was a private was very, very important, and I still remember who my drill instructors were.
Well, Jake, it's been a pleasure visiting with you today, and an honor, and I wish you the best, and I'm glad you picked Fairhope, Alabama to come
It's
and be part of it.
It's a beautiful town.
And have best wishes, and look forward to hearing more of your stories in the future.
Well, I thank you, and I hope that it will instill, encourage a young man to take seriously the challenge of being an officer in the Marine Corps or any of the services. It's a real opportunity, and it can be very satisfying, although it requires a lot of sacrifices.
Right. Well, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.